Hello and welcome to part of Misadventure. Today we've been updated to version 11 and I'm going to show you how updating and installing the modules will be just a little bit different, but it is still mostly the same. There's also a few bugs and new tools that we're going to go over at the end, and there'll be a bit more tutorials and walkthrough of how to use them. But the first thing you want to do is boot up your foundry or the forge, go to your assets library, then once you've downloaded the release specific asset library that you're looking for, in this case we're using the cave release, you're going to download that zip file from the Dropbox link that you see on Patreon. You're going to grab both the drag upload and map folders, then you're going to paste them into your world here. Those in particular will just make sure that all the assets are in place and that, pretty much all the prefabs and everything I've built will actually work and coordinate properly. So that's still the same. Once you get that uploaded, this is where things get a little bit different, but also a little bit easier. You're going to launch your Foundry page, and then we're going to go install modules where we usually do. Once you're in the splash page, you'll see it's a little bit different, but still mostly the same. You go to the far top right to add on modules. Then you're going to go to install module right over here. You're going to put in the manifest link right over here, and then just click install, which will be great. Something that's going to be a little bit different once it actually updates is when you get this module, it will highlight dependencies that it needs, and it will ask you if you want to install them, which will be very nice. Specifically, that's going to be new tools like Bailey Mass Edit, all the necessary ones like better roofs and the such. Then for the alternative, or rather, how do I put it? For the optional modules that are quality of life, like alternative rotation and fast flip, those will be optional, but it will offer to install them quickly for you. After that, we're almost done. Boot up your world, and then we're going to go activate the module within our actual foundry itself. Once your foundry boots up, you want to go to the top right, and you're going to go to manage modules, and we're just going to go type in Misadventure Cave Prefabs. We're going to click activate, and it pops up now because I've built in dependencies. As you can see, normally it's 11, but this time it's just 10. But it shows you all the necessary mods that you need for it to work, and then you can choose not to install the quality of life ones if you don't want to, which is nice. Alright, and we are almost done. If you go back to compendium packs, you'll see that we have our regular prefabs as usual, and importing them is just a little bit different. You can either drag or drop, or you can use a little quick shortcut by right-clicking in on them and say import all content, and we'll just put into the folder for caves. It's going to take some time, and then it will stack them in neatly for wherever you want to organize them and put them henceforth. But in addition to the prefabs, we now have, or I've now made cave brushes, which are effectively macros, but they're very fast at placing objects and very useful for what you can use them for and how much you can create with them. In order to get those in, we're just going to say import all content, and there's no folder for them per se just yet, so we'll just pop them in, and then just like that, it imports them all over. But these aren't fully functioned just yet. There's another step we have to complete in order to get them working. So what you'll do is you'll come over here to the left to Mass Edits for Bailey Wiki Mass Edits, and then that JSON file that you downloaded from the Patreon page, which will be in the same location as the asset libraries for this update and all going forward. You go up to the top left, you'll see an import JSON file. You'll select that file, and then you'll say import. It'll take a bit of time to get done, and once you do so, you'll see that it does drop everything in. However, the technology is still a little bit buggy, and I haven't ironed out all the kinks just yet, so it does not make the meticulous folders for them just yet. And while that wouldn't be a problem for the tiles, it is still a problem for the tokens, because there is another way to get the tokens in, and that would be to create an external directory that you can use to create links for these objects for the tiles when they're being used for wands. In order to do that, we got to go to the archiver up top here, top right, and you'll just click up the little plus up here on directories to index. Once you hit that, you've got to navigate to the caves within drag uploaded, and then all you got to do is select this directory to generate, and then you'll say generate index. It'll take some time, and then after you do so, it will effectively create these images and links so that the brushes will work and function properly. And that is it. The installation is completed. That being said, before we go, I do want to go over a little bit of the bugs, a little bit of the future, what's going to happen with designs, what's happening next month, as well as give you guys a little bit of the rundown of how to use these tools. So, The first one to go over that's new and is frankly incredible and absolutely amazing. And if you were to update your foundry for nothing else other than this tool, that's exactly what I'd recommend it for. So if you want to move to 11, this mass edit is pretty much it. So once we're in mass edit, there's a few things that you should be aware of that can help you out a lot. So there's this automatic layer switching option you can put up here. So basically, whenever I say switch over to tokens, it takes me over to the token layer. And then whenever I switch over to tiles, it takes me over back to tiles. And then the same for walls, which makes it very easy to edit and also very conducive for your workflow. Now, there is also scale tiles and drawings and walls relative to grid size, but I don't use that because I know all my assets, namely all the Forgotten Adventure assets, are at 200 ppi, and all the other assets that I use are also brought to that standard, as well as the fact that all my maps are made that way. However, if you're using maps from multiple creators, then it may be more useful to you, though I can't necessarily guarantee the fidelity in that regard. That being said, another thing we should touch on is that for anybody who's new here, all of my maps, whether it be just the blank slates that I've given with the tiles and everything, as well as specifically the night tier maps, they're all at 200 ppi, so whenever you're trying to edit them, they'll already be set up that way, but when you're making your own maps, you'll want to put them at 200 ppi. So, that pretty much covers what you'll want to keep in mind for the tiles. That being said, if we ever want to make or take advantage of this, we can just say, take this one asset, which is a tile, just say brush, and then boom, we now have a brush tile, which is really nice, which also unfortunately antiquates a great deal of my pre-made token attached bushes and flora that I had for the forest release, but at the same time it's nice to have both. But now, instead of having to tediously try and take out multiple sets, and that can be useless for each situation, we can just go through maps that we've already made and make entire bushels as easy as this, and then even make that a set itself. Now, something even cooler, let's say we like this set that we've made here, and we might name it something like a 2x2 set of, how to put it, ferns. So for making your own brushes, you can take this set, click, hold, and drag it into the presets, and we'll call it fern 2x2 2, and we'll apply it, and then it will remember that selection over here. That way when we drag it out later, it pretty much does exactly what token attach will do, except for the fact that it's not bound by a control token, which is amazing. And then if we right click on this and we say brush, now we can place this with a lot more ease. It will rotate with ease, and honestly, we can now make maps much more easily. Like if we see a piece of map that we like, we can literally just use this whenever we want to, which is awesome. Now, another trick you can have is while you're in this tool brush, you can hold down shift to do large rotations, hold down control to do small rotations, and if we have multiple items selected, so I'm just going to take these four, and you select multiple objects as you would normally, just left click, hold down shift, left click the other one and grab a whole bunch of them, or left click, control click, and then you can select individual ones. But if we take this brush here and we've got it set to random, let's say we took it off randomizer, it would normally just take each asset, as you can see here, going down one at a time, at a time, at a time. If we wanted to select it manually, we can just hold down shift and control, and it'll immediately switch over to the next one. That even includes on random. So if we don't like it, we can just switch over, etc., which is very useful. Something else to keep in mind is that when we used our multiple attached brush, it's only going to spawn them as multiple clusters like this if we have this option selected, specifically the spawn multiple placeables as a group. If we untick that off, it's just going to place them one at a time, or just specifically all the objects that we had in the selection, which are just the ferns at this point. But unless we click that option, it's not going to place them all at once. And if we make a mess of things, you can go down here and click eraser instead of spawner, and it will begin to start erasing tiles one at a time, which is very nice for cleaning up and getting stuff done. Also, if you don't have the spawner selected, it won't actually place anything at all. To touch on brushes a bit more, let's say there was a tile brush or any kind of brush we really liked and we wanted to keep. What you can do is, up top here at the very top, this little icon, little brackets, you can click on it, and then when you do, you can generate a macro for it, and then you can keep it as a macro forever. We'll just call it fern 2x2 brush. You can say save macro, close this one out. Then whenever you go to your macros directory, it will create one for you, and then you can make thumbnails for it if you want to. But then whenever you want to get that brush with its specific settings and any of the other elements used within it, you can always come back to it. Now, tokens that have been made into prefabs, as the stuff we've made from our actual, prefabs that we have in our collection, get a little bit messy at times. It still will keep all the information you have on them, the colors you've given them, the lighting, anything you've attached to tokens, the walls, etc., which is kind of what's important. But it comes a point where it will, how do I put it? It will stop spawning the walls properly, and I'll give an example here in a second. But you can see here I've got it fully randomized. I can shift click and rotate it. And every now and then you'll notice that it will not snap precisely where I want it. Right now it's actually working fully and properly, which is wild, but every so now and then you'll see its walls do not actually place properly. Now there are a couple solutions to this. If we simply click on it and we rotate it slightly once and then rotate it back, Bob's your uncle, you're fine. Other times when you move it, it may not remember its position properly, and same for other ones. So if I just take all of these and rotate them just slightly, it honestly sometimes will get fixed and you'll be fine. But if we take one of our brushes, for example, some of them are big enough that it will actually cause not only resource issues, but only in some maps, but it will actually, if you start spawning them fast enough, not actually be able to keep up fully properly, and you'll begin to notice that it will not actually place some of these as accurately as it could or should, which, as you can see, is really, really nice, because you can start making really cool dungeons and caves very quickly right off the bat, and we already have something fairly serviceable. The only problem is that you can see here some of the attached tokens will not actually place as what they were placed. How to put it? They will place off center, which will leave you in a bad spot, because the way you designed it or place the map, they will not remember whenever you adjust it or move it. It will not actually remember where it was kept perfectly or otherwise. So, as vexing as that is, and I haven't found a way out of it through the documentation or seen any bugs or threads on it just yet with any actual fixes, this technology is still amazing, and frankly ends up allowing me to build things so much faster than I ever could previously. Another thing I want to touch on is that if you guys have never used prefabs before, or have never used token annotation before, in order to edit any of these self-made prefabs and the houses that you see later on from the village pack, etc., I can't actually edit this tile itself or any of its walls directly without actually going into this quick edit mode, which will then allow me to do so, but is a little too slow perhaps. So instead, I highly recommend you go over to compendium packs and go to example macros, and then go within here and grab the toggle quick edit mode. This macro is king, as you can just toggle it on and off, and that will allow you to make changes and adjustments as you would want or need on the go, on the fly, which I highly recommend.